What's up? It's Dr. Will James with Dr. Will James Reports. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, definitely leave a comment, help grow the channel, help increase that algorithm, and yeah, let's get to it. So today I have a video. Tracee Ellis Ross, actress Tracee Ellis Ross, sat down with Michelle Obama. I believe it's Michelle Obama's new podcast, which that can be a whole discussion right there. But Tracee Ellis Ross is a beautiful actress. She's 52 years old. But as you begin to hear her speak, you listen to her speak, it becomes abundantly clear why she's single. And, that's not really ad hominem or anything like that. It's just she doesn't understand men. She doesn't understand masculinity. And she has a modern view. She's a modern woman, not a traditional woman. And it comes out in her talk. So that's why she's single. As beautiful as she is, men just don't want to put up with it. It becomes a big headache and it's sort of emasculating. So we're just going to watch the clip and, I will, narrate, stop the video at points to point out what I'm talking about. So let's get into it.
More open than it should.
Yes.
That was right.
All right.
More open than it should be, but I do date, and it's a fascinating adventure out there. Mostly though, I think there's really good men out there. I think to a certain extent, I'm a very unique sort of unicorn of a woman, and so it's going to take a unique person. And in the meantime, I have really learned how to live my life and enjoy it and not sit around waiting. I was saying to someone recently that I'm one of the first generations of choice, and it's not anymore, which really, there was a window and that has shifted. And I do think that that's going to change dating for women so much.
When you mean you've been the sort of the product of choice.
Yeah, like the assumption of Roe v. Wade and the ability for a woman to find her own delight and pleasure and choice around how she navigates dating or how.
That right there, she brought up Roe v. Wade and choice. And so she's already coming off like a feminist and like a liberal. And many men don't like that ideology with someone dating. Firstly, for someone like me, she's a Black woman, so that doesn't even, I'm pro-life. Roe v. Wade, abortion or, deletion has been very detrimental to the Black community. I don't champion it. So she would probably not even like someone like myself. Once we sit down, that's a big deal breaker for a lot of women who are pro-choice. They think you're doing something wrong if you say that you're pro-life and you don't think that we should be doing that. So when she says this whole choice thing, that's what I mean by part of the problem. If you just, without even thinking of, obviously we're not talking about in situations where there's a health risk to the child or to the mother. We're just talking about when people just go do that as a form of, contraception. That's what we're talking about. They do it as a form of birth control. So that's what we're talking about here. And she seems to be in favor of that already. So these are the things I'm talking about.
One would navigate dating, and we're in a different world now. And I'm curious what that will look like. It frightens me for younger girls because of many reasons, obviously. But even with the systemic protection of Roe v. Wade, I still was coming up against the cultural norms of being a choiceful woman and owning my own body and my own choices and what it is that I'm looking for in a relationship and the ability to negotiate in a relationship what it is you want the relationship to be between the two of you, as opposed to what society says it should be.
Well,
that's different.
I don't know that we're gonna lose that. I think women, we're used to having a say in our lives. And I don't know whether the whole movement is about sort of reharnessing us, you know, whether is it really about,
and can that really
reproductive
work?
rights? Can that really work now that women are educated and we're being raised differently? I mean, the truth is that fathers are modernized.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
mostly
mostly they are, you know, and if you were to ask the
being raised differently and we're going backwards.
average man, how are you raising your daughter? Because you love her. The average father that loves their daughter wants them to be excellent, you know, and they want them to have opportunity and freedom.
And
mean, when you think about you don't want your daughter saddle marrying some guy that chose her because he just didn't think about anything else
and
was
who believes
ready
that
at
her
the time.
body is his choice.
Exactly. So I don't think a lot of leaders are thinking.
That doesn't even make sense. Believes her body is his choice. You see what I'm talking about? This is why I say, like, she's the problem. It's clear she's the problem. A beautiful woman like her, she's still very beautiful in her 50s. What does she look like in her 20s and 30s? It's her ideology that keeps her single. And in her mind, she's right. But that's when I say we can objectively look at what benefits the Black community. We can look at things and we can decide who's right and who's wrong. It's not just, oh, well, if that's her ideology, she could be right. Who's to say who's right and who's wrong? The facts are to say who's right and who's wrong. We can look at what our communities were in the 40s and 50s and 60s under Jim Crow, when Black people were fighting for real civil rights, when we were doing worse off systemically from underneath oppression, systemically, the way it was. We had better families, we had better communities than we do now. That's how we decide what's right and what's wrong. Roe v. Wade came in, that was a part of destruction. The modern feminist movement came in, that was a part of destruction. We had drugs pushed in our communities. We had several things that we can look at and say, hey, when these things were pushed on our communities, when these things started to happen, we started to go backwards. So all of these things were to our detriment, not to our benefit. So when people champion these things, we can say, hey, what happened the last time these things were championed or really pushed on our community? Her whole ideology is a part of all of those things I just said. She supports the LGBTQIA. She supports Roe v. Wade. She's a modern feminist. None of that makes sense for Black women. And I proved that already several times. I talk about it in my book. None of that makes sense.
About that.
You know? Well, and they haven't been asked to, because I think it's not always a context that if it's an area that you don't have to think into,
right?
But I think there is, it is a genuine, regular thought process for me. It's one of the reasons. I mean, we've talked about this, that often I date younger men, and a lot of it is because.
Let's stop on that, folks.
Oh my God, we had a great dinner. We had a great dinner, by the way, where across the table, your husband goes, "But why?" And I said, well, maybe because I can.
Yes. This is what I'm saying. Tales from Tracee's.
It's fun. It's very fun to share.
Tracee tale.
But
you date a younger woman.
But one of the reasons, though, that, because I had to ask myself that question, I was like, what is this about?
Yeah.
Because I want a partner. And so often, and it's not just that I'm older, I'm also very embodied. I am a full, very whole person who knows myself, who is in charge of my life, and who lives a very full, just robust life. So it's not just age, it's like life experience and sort of a difference. But I had to ask myself the question, why? Why does this keep sort of coming up other than they're hot and gorgeous?
There's that.
But a lot of men my age are steeped in a toxic masculinity and have been raised.
I'll stop that right there. Toxic masculinity does not exist. So this is when I say when she's the problem. These modern women, modern feminists, they believe in stupid terms like toxic masculinity that don't exist. Toxic masculinity does not exist. Only toxic people exist. I'll say that again. Toxic masculinity does not exist. Only toxic people exist. Toxic masculinity doesn't exist. Toxic femininity doesn't exist. And you never hear toxic femininity. Why do we only hear toxic masculinity? It's a part of an agenda. You want to, toxic masculinity doesn't even make sense. The absence of masculinity is what's toxic. Toxic masculinity can never be toxic. Masculinity is protecting women. Masculinity is saying, hey, young men do cry, boys do cry, and being in touch with your emotions and understanding what a man is. That can never be toxic. That makes no sense. When they give these examples of toxic masculinity, they say, oh, that's a father raising his son, telling him, oh, don't cry, men don't cry. If that's toxic masculinity, what is it if a mother says it to her son? Stop crying, young men don't cry, boys don't cry. What would that be? You see why it doesn't make sense? And again, that's not masculinity. That's just a toxic person. That's not toxic masculinity. That would be a father, a man who lacks masculinity to understand that there's a time and place for everyone to cry, and that crying is a normal thing. It's a normal response. It's normal to have feelings and emotions. It's just how you go about them. If you're a grown man and you stump your toe and you start crying, okay, you need to man up. That's not when we cry. But if you lost someone, you lose a loved one, you go through certain things, it's okay to cry. So this is what I'm talking about. Little stupid terms like that.
In a culture where there is a particular way that a relationship looks. And anything that starts to smell of that for me, I did enough of it where I was controlled and felt like I was a possession or whatever those things were, or prize and I have no interest in it, and I will not do it again.
I'm sorry.
No,
Craig.
I was going to say, so it's a generational thing. So it didn't matter how you met them, or is it just kind of the guys you're meeting?
That's obviously
too big of a generalization.
It's a generalization, but because I have dated men my age, there is a difference. There is an openness that occurs with a younger man around whether it's gender fluidity or not even having an issue with homosexuality. I mean, something as basic as that there's times where I'll be sitting across the table from somebody and just like, what did you just say?
Yeah, what century are you?
Like, oh my God.
So here she go. Here she go with more stupidity. That's why I'm saying she's the problem. She's a modern feminist. She's this extreme liberal. That's why she's the problem. Most men don't attach themselves to gender fluidity. That's another thing that's just stupid. It's not fluid. You're either a man or a woman. Gender cannot be fluid. And this is what I'm talking about with the hypocrisy of women like her. How can you say Roe v. Wade and body and choice and this, that, and the third, and then you support gender fluidity? She's the type to say, oh, that's a woman's conversation, Roe v. Wade. But if gender is fluid, what is a woman? She's the problem. She's why she's single. It's very evident listening to her. Her cognitive dissonance is just reeking. That makes no sense. Not having a problem with homosexuality. No. If a person stands on certain principles, and for example, if you are a real believer in biblical texts, or you believe in the Quran or certain beliefs, that goes against our beliefs. A man can have a problem with that. They wouldn't want their son or daughter to be that. What are you talking about? She's the problem. So when men put their foot down with her and say, no, I wouldn't want that for my family, she sees it as them being toxic or being a problem. You see why you got to make people explain? She's why she's single at 52.
Where's your horse and buggy?
Yeah, like, I'm so sorry.
And your bedpan.
Yeah, for real.
Chamber pot.
Yeah,
Your
your
chamber
chamber
pot.
pot. Your chamber pot. Like, where I'm just like, yeah, this is not a match.
Yeah.
And I have long been past the age where I feel like it's my job to teach somebody or grow them up.
Yeah.
That I'm not interested in. So,
you see, she says she has to teach someone or grow them up. So they're not grown enough if they don't have her ideology. So she's thinking that she's going to be teaching them. So the type of men who have the ideology that she has, or that would support her ideology, aren't man enough for her, though. Because why don't you get with the young man who's so liberal and has the same ideology as you? It's because they're not going to be man enough. They're not going to have certain things, certain traits that women look for. That's why she's still single, because you said you found younger men, you dated younger men who were more understanding in that way, in that arena, because that's something that's pushed more. So why aren't you with the younger man? It's never good enough for a woman like her. She's never going to find the man that's good enough.
but it's interesting. I mean, there's so many different philosophies on dating, and I have come up with mine. I have come up with what works for me and what makes sense for me and what feels safe for me.
Yep.
I mean, like, I'm not on dating apps. I have friends that have great success with dating apps, but that's just not something I'm comfortable
So
with.
you're meeting folks in the wild then?
That's the only way for me. Or someone sets me up, or
Okay.
I meet them at an event. I meet someone. It's usually people that also have a level of recognition that they, have as much to lose as me to a certain extent. I don't know. I mean, I haven't had great luck lately, but I do have to say I'm moving up on what it is that I'm looking for as a match. Yeah. I've had some doozies. Yeah.
But it's just, I just love watching your life because you were modeling so many things, the next phase, how many versions of ourselves we can become at all ages in life, and how to build the life you want.
Yes.
Not the life that somebody told you you were supposed to have. And let me tell you, I told you this about the girls, and Tracee, just like, she mentors the girls. She's always there for them. But trying to make sure that I am not subconsciously sending them these messages about what their life should look like. Even like when you ask, are you dating anyone? I mean, that's something that we ask young people in their 20s, the whole thing about weddings,
we talk a lot about that.
Yeah. It's just like the pre-proposal and the bachelorette and the pre-honeymoon and then the 3 wedding dresses and have you thought about
the amount of money,
your 32 list items of who you want to marry, or are you more busy picking out your photographer?
Yeah, it's interesting, that whole, I hope that is starting to dissipate culturally.
So.
I really do. I think social media is perpetuating some of those things in a really big way, but I did.
Okay, I agree with that. If they're talking about not focusing so much on a wedding and spending so much on a wedding, I agree with that. It's not all bad.
Dream of my wedding growing up. And that's not to say that I didn't dream of the bigness of my life, but I could have spent a lot more time dreaming of my life. And as much as grief does surface for me around not having children and not having a partner, I still wouldn't want the wrong partner.
That's another thing that Kevin Samuels and others used to hit on the head. When you are young and you're focused on your career and you're trying to be this boss woman and all of this stuff, when you get older and you've got your career and you're this boss woman and you made good income for yourself, but you don't have a husband and you don't have kids, it's going to hit you. A woman is a woman. That's why you got to know, get you a feminine woman who desires marriage, who desires a husband. She wants to be a wife. She doesn't just desire a husband. She wants to be a wife, right? She doesn't just want to be married. She wants to be a wife. She wants to be a mother. Men will take that every day of the week. We'll take that over some woman who has $1 million and she's some boss chick. She's super masculine, not really thinking about family. She just wants to run the streets and open her mouth. As a woman, your superpower is being a supporter. It's the saying, behind every great man is a great woman. With Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, we didn't need to see them. We didn't need to see the wives. Just knowing that they were there holding it down is where their legacy was, right? With LeBron James' wife, her holding down the family, the 3 kids, and letting him achieve what he achieved, and him going out there being the man, earning the income, taking care of the family, providing, protecting. Her showing up to the games, cheering on her husband, holding it down, dressing respectfully, being quiet, graceful, elegant. Her legacy is there. What more do you want? Your husband is a billionaire, no scandals, cheating on you, nothing like that, protecting you. You got the house, the kids are healthy. What more do you want? The legacy is there. That's the woman, that's the femininity. Be okay with that. We got too many women in today's society where they want to be the man that they're married to. Like they want to, that's why you got to be okay with a woman who doesn't mind, who doesn't want to be in the spotlight. A real woman in her feminine energy, she doesn't mind just playing the backseat, playing that supporting role. It doesn't even make sense for a man to be in the supporting role. That's not manly. Stay-at-home mom makes sense. Stay-at-home dad does not make sense. Stay-at-home dad does not make sense. You would let your wife go out and earn all of the income, and she's putting her health or whatever on the line, and she's getting up in the morning, going to work while you just stay at home. That's not how it's supposed to work. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I bugging? Y'all let me know what y'all think. Peace.